portion of it is the erosion preset, adding some noise, an EQ8 to focus the noise just to the like high mids, high end, and a Haas effect using a delay to get it nice and wide. And I have a couple of macro knobs to adjust what's taking place. So in this case, I'll set the noise frequency up and we'll adjust the dry wet to taste so we get a little bit of like stereo noise, kind of fill out the stereo space in the high end. We can also add bass lane. If you haven't heard of bass lane, it's a plugin for adding like side harmonics to the stereo field. It's really good for like widening up bass sounds. So go ahead and just crank it all the way so you can hear what it does. So this is without it. And then we bring this in. You get lots of just wide, nice side harmonics. So let's adjust this to taste here. Kind of like that. We can also go ahead and add a ZZ. This is the multi-band compression preset from Ableton, but I've turned the attack times down to as fast as they can go. So it really clamps down on the sound, and it kind of smooths it out, I feel like. And I kind of use this in place of like an OTT. I think OTT kind of gets a little noisy, adds some artifacts and things like that. It can be a bit too much, so I like using this ZZ a lot. You can adjust the output. One thing about this is the sub kind of suffers a little bit. I think we have some nice sub here, and then as we do this, it kind of changes the tonality. So let's do a couple of things real quick. Maybe let's try this again. Let's try this. Whoops. Sounds kind of cool there. Bring it up a little bit. And let's use an EQ8. And we're going to go ahead and clean up the high end. So what I like to do is right click my EQ, set it to oversampling. And that gives you a more gradual low pass curve. So without it, if you wanted to low pass the signal, you get this really sharp curve to begin with, and then it becomes more gradual. Whereas if you set it to oversampling, right out of the gate, it's more gradual because it's dealing with higher frequencies, and so the curve is going farther up the frequency spectrum. It's going even higher than it would otherwise. So let's just pull this back a little bit. Clean up the high end a little bit. The sub sounds good. It could be better. One thing we can try is adding a Pro Q3 and doing a notch filter. The Pro Q3 notch filter is especially cool because when you add a higher dB per octave, you get this weird, it just like deletes the sound in the middle. And that's cool for like sub sound design. So let's try putting this like before the compression. If you don't have Pro Q3, you can just do this with Ableton EQ. The only difference is just that you're not going to get that really dramatic dB per octave that you can get with Pro Q3, but you definitely some nice effects to get out of this as well. I'm going to jump back here. Just mess around a bit in this kind of low mid range. You can get some cool tonality. Maybe we try it after the compression. Kind of like that there. This isn't going to come out exactly like the other one, but that's okay. That's the fun part of sound design, is every time you get something a little different. So let's just crush this. Let's do that. Let's do RC20 again. Just get it loud. That back just a little bit, like that. Nope. Like there. One more thing we can try is like Disperser, and try to get it to affect the low end Every time you adjust, when you have a really thick bass sound that's getting clipped hard into like distortion, you can drop like Disperser in, and every time you just adjust the amount knob a little bit or the pitch knob, you get like all kinds of different sounds. So like, listen here, and we'll move it just one more. Different tone, different tone. Really cool to mess around with. That's pretty cool. So let's do that. We'll duplicate this again. And we're just trying to squeeze as much out of it as we can. We'll do an EQ to clean up the high end a little bit. Probably pull the, yeah, let's try to turn that amp off. Get something like this. We can also maybe try a different disperser because it's leaving a long tail. So the lower amount you do, the less of a tail you're going to get. But if you turn it up all the way, you can hear as I stop the sound, you still get like a tail leading behind. But with less, there's less tail. That's pretty gross there. Let's turn the distortion up a little bit. Yeah, and this is just kind of my sound design process. It's very just like tweaking one thing, go back to another thing, trying some new effects. We're kind of losing a little bit of the stereo width that I like, so let's go ahead and drop another bass lane after the distortion. So that's kind of that. Now we have like a nice thick bass sound, and you can just keep working this and getting things louder and louder, right? And more blown out. So now we have like this, and then we can go ahead and drop an RC20 and try to pull out some more mids and high mids. Right, just getting louder and louder, more in your face. Right, it's absolutely clipping the master here. So that's kind of cool. We'll go back to this sound here. So obviously different tone, but you can kind of see how we've gone from just a simple 808 to like something very in your face, loud, right? Where are we? Whoops. Oh, I see what happened. We started with that, and now we've made our way to this. So yeah, it builds up pretty quick. So that's that. Yes. And so for this pattern, I'm just messing around with the pitch here, minus 30, minus 31. So that's that. There's also this bark layer. This is the tail from a snare and I think a cymatics pack. I had this one here as well. These are just some sounds I've saved over the years. Just with a little bit of distortion, making it louder, and some EQ to clean up the low end, right? And then this wide buzzy noise to layer in with the bass sound. So all of that comes together for this. And here we have some group effects here. We have the disperser. This time the frequency is really high, so it's just kind of affecting the attack of the sound a little bit. We have this EQ8 to kind of roll off the high end just a little bit. and then kilohertz distortion, pushing the signal even louder. So that's that. That's kind of the bass sound. We have these pluck sounds. And these are a very similar thing, just taking a bass sound, messing around with the tones, and just trying to get something very tonal out of it. So like, just real quick, let's mess around with another like tiny one here. Take like this sound here. Let's do this. So warp, tones, pull it out a little bit. And then set the grain size up. So you can hear we have what sounds like a bunch of notes. Let's distort that. Maybe use an EQ8. So that's kind of cool there. So what you could do is press Command J to print that or flatten it. We have like this here. We can do this. And kind of just, once again, work iteratively to turn this into some kind of like little tonal bass sound. This can maybe use like Disperser, right? I go kind of low with it. Do this. We have a bit of a tail. Let's pull this back. Like that. Take another EQ and try to clean up the low end. Like that. Pull this in. And now that's pretty cool. We can take a frequency shifter and mess with the pitch. And so this is kind of the process I would go through to get something kind of like this. If we take the effects off, you'll hear it's just kind of this like simple tonal sound. This sound we have here is maybe like halfway in between the finish sound and the starting sound, if that makes sense, right? So like the starting sample, that's the finished sound. And we're kind of about halfway with this. So I'll walk through the processing on this here. We have, and I'll just mute this for now. Let's do this. To start, we have this frequency shifter. Just taking the pitch up a little bit. This is the old school frequency shifter from, I don't know when they switched it, 10 or 11. But I went ahead and you can just, if you have an old project file with the old frequency shifter in it, you can just save it. In this case, I named it Frequency Shifter Legacy. And that's a good way to get the OG versions of plugins or of the Ableton effects. You can just hold on to them. They save into the preset, which is nice. So you can hold on to the old versions. Next, I added Disperser, just to kind of soften the attack a little bit. It's got this higher frequency. Another one, again, just duplicated, just so the attack is a little smoother. So without both of these, it's a little more percussive, and then with it, the attack is a little smoother coming in. Virtual Riot Stereoizer, adding some stereo width. Without it, it's It's right down the middle, and then with it, gets a little wider. Kilohertz comb filter. This is a cool way to add some more stereo width. What you can do is use the stereo function here to make it stereo. And this is adding different comb filtering in the left and right ear. And then you can mess around with the hertz to find something you like. And you can mix it in to add a little stereo. So that's what I did in this case. Very nice effect. Kilohertz dynamics. This is cleaning up the tail. So you see I have a fast attack and release, and I've pulled this in. This is tightening up everything below this threshold here. So the sound comes up and then it gets cut off. It's cutting the start and stop of the sound, so you get a nice tight sound. Here I'm using kilohertz distortion, absolutely slamming the sound. Kilohertz distortion again, slamming it even more. So now it's very distorted. We're dropping an EQ8, high passing it, adding a peak here to pull out the tone more, and then a low pass filter here to clean up a little bit of high end. Then we have RC20 fattener, getting it really loud. So before, and then with it. And then we have RC20 fattener again. Even louder. Kilohertz dynamics again. This is clamping down on the attack of the sound, just softening a little bit so it's not as piercing. And then master and catch peaks, doing the same thing again. If we go into here and we type in catch peaks, comes right up. This is an Ableton preset. It's fast attack, fast release, high ratio, and it's really good for catching sharp peaks from like percussion sounds or bass sounds in this case. And so that's on, just catching a little bit, and it also has soft clipping off. Yeah, soft clipping's off, so it's hard clipping right now because it's just so loud. This delay here that comes on at certain sections, and the EQ8, cleaning up the low end, adding a little peak in here. And that's our final sound here. And then you have like these little different iterations here. I think all I did for that was like take the main sound and kind of stretch it out. And then you get like this. Right? So that's kind of cool. Just different phrases. That's cool. You get to this part here. Everything goes down 2 semitones, and so I pitched these down 2 semitones. So here it's -12 on the pitch, and then we get to here, and we go to -14. So taking the pitch down in the second half just to get things a little bit heavier, a little harder. We have this dark wub sound. I'll go into that in a second. And then you can hear the delay comes in for this last hit to kind of take us out of the drop. And that just automates on here. Yep. We turn it on, and then once we get to the build, it turns off. And then we gradually pull in the dry wet knob here. Kind of cool. And I think that's about it. This section here is just messing around more with the pitch and some of the effects to get different tones out of this. Let's see here. Yeah. Just a lot of the same tricks taking place, messing around with some of the tones and warp modes. I think here, let's see. Yeah, see we're on tones on this bass sound. And then when we get to this half, I've started messing around with like complex to get some different tones out of the sub. So pretty cool. So that's that. And then the third drop is just messing around with patterns. I don't think I did any different sound design stuff. like just chopped up this little bit, stretched it out, just to add some variation between the different drops. So that's that. What else? We have this offbeat vocal here. This is a Cashmere vocal sample. Let me just group this real quick. Actually, we'll do this. Select everything, press 0 to turn them all off. And so this is a sample. And all I did was pitch it down 5 semitones so it's in key. And I tightened it up so it's a tighter vocal versus having this long. It's a huh. So coming down here, this is mostly just to get it louder and a little more in your face. So I have this rap vocal rack. This is a little rack I made for vocals. It's got this reduce ambience preset here in Ableton. You type in reduce ambience. This is like a multiband gate. And when you adjust that mount knob, it kind of cleans things up a little bit more. In this case, I did a few edits, it looks like. So you can open up the project file and check this out. We have this OTT Quick, which is, I think this is just OTT with a fast attack on all 3 bands here. So I just made the attack as fast as possible. And the power knob is adjusting the amount here. So that's kind of nice. That's pulling out a lot of detail, kind of clamping down on the mid-range. And then this EQ8, high passing, taking out some of the, just like notching a few frequencies here and there. And the power knob is adjusting that dynamically. So the more you pull the power knob up, you start to hear a little bit more high end, which is kind of nice. That's cool. This reverb, if you adjust the reverb knob, you can turn it on. In this case, it's off, but it's nice to add a little bit of space around the vocal sometimes. This chorus group here, I think is adjusted by the ambience rack, and this adds this nice like stereo delay, like some chorus, some delay, reverb, as you can see here. Kind of nice, adds a little ambience. That's that. And then this EQ8 is kind of cleaning up the low end. So that's this. I'll set it back. Then we have kilohertz distortion, absolutely crushing the sound. So it's this clipped in your face vocal sample. The ZZ preset again at 50%, just pulling out some more detail. Our good old kilohertz comb filter stereo trick, adding a little bit of stereo. EQ8, cleaning up the low end. Stereoizer for more stereo. Can't have enough stereo. Kilohertz dynamics, clamping down on the attack again. It's a fast attack, fast release, adding a little bit of gain. Just clamping down on the attack. We have Fresh Air. If you're not familiar with Fresh Air, it's by Slate Digital. And it's like a exciter, so it's adding saturation to the high end. And it's really nice for pulling out high frequencies out of sounds. So in this case, I'll just real quickly pull this up so you can hear. This adds a lot of nice high end. So it's pretty sensitive to start. So I usually just go about, 5 or 10% a lot of times. So that's that, pulling out a little bit of high end. RC20 to get a little bit louder. Kilohertz distortion. Not doing anything, maybe just hitting the saturation curve or whatever. And then this one, absolutely crushing it. So loud. And we have the mix knob on, so it's not 100% crushing it, but it's adding like that buzzy distortion in there. Mastering catch peaks again to clamp down on the attack, and we have the soft clip knob on. And then EQ8 just to clean up the low end. So now you have this completely blown out vocal. little Tassion brass stab here. Just real quick. I don't know, it's a little something nice. And then now we can go over this dark wub sound. So this is something from Vital. I did a sound design session a little while ago where I was making these types of sounds. So I have remade the dark wub sound here, just to kind of show over the process of making this sound. So this is in Vital. We have two oscillators. The first one is the main part of the sound. It's the square wave running through the like smear warp filter here. And then the other oscillator is the sub. And that's this kind of squarified sine wave. And that's running through the low pass warp mode here to kind of soften it a bit. And so both of these run through this LFO1 here, doing a volume envelope. And we have LFO2 adjusting the smear thing here, the warp mode. So that's that. The sub is going direct out. This oscillator 1 is running through the effects. So if we go into the effects tab, I can turn these off real quick. And we have the distortion here. Just getting the sound a little bit louder. And that's being modulated by LFO1, right? And then the chorus here, adding some stereo width and this cool wide chorusy sound. And then we're using the filter set to low pass filter. And this is controlled by LFO3. And that is just kind of cleaning up some of the high end on the sound. So you get this nice like wubby kind of sound. And what's cool about this preset is you can also change your wavetables and you get lots of different sounds. Really cool. You can also use the sync warp mode here. So that's really cool. You can also try pulse. I think pulse sounds really cool too. Very futuristic. So that's that. And then this is running through some additional processing to get it louder. So let's just go through here. We'll turn these off. Go one by one. I have this smack rack here. This is a modified version of the Virtual Riot Fat Rack, I think. So quickly just going through this, you'll have the project file. I'll try to keep this in here so you guys can check it out. There's the saturator here, just adding some gain and overdrive, adding some more gain and saturation. I have the EQ, clean up some low mids, around 2 and 3K, and then adding a little peak here, and also a low pass. Delay for the space knob here. In this case, we're not using it. I think it's for the space knob. What else do we have? Stereoizer here, adding some stereo width. A phaser, overdrive, reduce ambience, glue compressor, kind of clamping down on the sound a little bit with the soft clip on. All of this trying to get the sound just louder. Here's OTT, pulling out some more detail. Glue compressor, not really doing much compression, really just saturating the sound. The sub compressor here to help kind of control the sub. The space rack, so that's the space knob there. Adding some nice space as you turn it up. And what else do we have? This multiband compression here. And sides. Just cleaning up the low end on the sides of the signal. A little mid-side processing. So that's that, the smack rack here. Making it louder. Then we have this kilohertz ladder filter. Just barely cleaning up the high end. The kilohertz ladder filter is a really nice low pass filter. It's a lot more gradual than like the Ableton EQ8 low pass filter, I think. So this can sound a little cleaner. There's not a lot of like resonance around the cutoff point. Transistor is gradual, and then I think diode sounds even more gradual. So definitely nice to mess around with if you're looking for some softer sounding low pass filters. Definitely worth a try. ZZ again, just to pull out some more detail and flatten out the sound a little bit. Kilohertz ladder filter again, just doing a little bit bass lane. So there's your width, adding that low mid width, RC20, adding some volume, kilohertz ladder filter to clean up the low end once again. The slap reverb here, just adding a little bit of space as you turn that up, you can hear the space a bit more. So got it pretty quiet just so it adds a little bit of space around the bass. And that's that. That's my kind of recreation of that sound there. We'll leave this in the project file so you guys can check that out. So what next? So that does it for the drop sounds. Let's go ahead and check out these bass sounds. It's pretty quick. We just have the sub riser here, so this is during the builds. And we'll just break this down. Let's go ahead and group that, turn it off. So out of Vital, we have this saw wave getting low passed, right? So that's that, and it's running through this LFO, doing quarter notes, adjusting the level. I believe so. I don't know why that's not animating. Anyhow, so we have this, that's being our sub. We have this white noise sampler here, just adding white noise. The white noise goes to filter 2 here, which is high passing it. So we're just getting high white noise added to the signal. Both of these run into the effects, and we have this distortion effect here. It's set to soft clip, and it's distorting the two together, so you get this nice buzzy bass. And you can hear we have this riser knob here, slowly pulling up the signal, the pitch, and that's automated throughout the build. So things are rising, as you can see here, just going straight up. I think it just goes up an octave. And then towards the end here, I'm using an auto filter to kind of take out some of the low end and take away some energy before the drop hits again. Nice little trick, especially as the kick drum starts to double time. You're getting a lot of bass buildup, so trying to take out some of the bass is definitely nice so things don't get too distorted and gross. So here we go. This is all the processing here. So let's just do this. This G-Clip rack, as you may know, on some of the newer MacBooks, G-Clip doesn't work with Ableton anymore. I got a new MacBook this past year. I have a hole in my heart where G-Clip used to be. So I've been trying to find an alternative. In this case, I was messing around with FreeClip, and I really like the Arctangent preset in FreeClip. It's a nice, soft saturation sound. And all this is just pulling up the drive knob here. And it's adding a little bit of soft clipping. It's not anything too crazy. Next we have EQ8. Again, we're notching out some of the low mids here and just boosting a little bit in the high mids and doing a little roll off for the high end. So that's that. Kilohertz comb filter again, doing our stereo trick. And then follow that up with some mid-side EQ to kind of clean up the low mids so that this stereo widening is really only affecting the, mids and high mids. So those two working in tandem, and there's also a boost around 10K on both the mid and side, working just as a normal EQ would. Pulling out some of that like buzzy detail. And then here we have Kilohertz Transient Shaper. If you didn't know, Transient Shaper also works as a sidechain plugin. So if you turn the attack down all the way, You can come down here to the sidechain option, set it to input 3+4, and then you come down here in Ableton and you can select your sidechain input. In this case, I'm using the kick during the build, and it's sidechaining the bass to the kick so that the signal is ducking under the kick and kind of cleaning things up so that there's not too much bass buildup during the build. And then you can use the speed knob to adjust it to taste. So if I wanted more ducking under the kick, I can just pull the speed knob back. Or if I want it even tighter, it makes the signal even louder. So that's really nice. Quick little trick there. This is the auto filter from earlier, cleaning up the low end as the build approaches the end here. And then EQ8, just pulling out some of the high buzziness. So that's pretty cool. That's that. We also have this bass drop sample here. Oops. And this just has the wide noise rack on it. Nothing too crazy. And a little bit of saturation with some dry wet just to pull out some harmonics, because otherwise this sample is kind of just more low end focused. So with that and this, kind of sticks out in the mix a little bit more. Right? So that's that. And now we go over to this outro Reese. And this is pretty straightforward. This is kind of like the dark wub sound. There's the two oscillators. So the top one is kind of your classic Reese. We have 8 voices, kind of just modulating, and it's all chorusy. And then the other oscillator is your sub, which is just a low pass saw wave again. And the reason for adding a sub to an already bassy sound is for a lot of like these Reese sounds, if you look at, and hold on one sec, let's see, yeah, let's get rid of the EQ here just for a sec. If you come over to like your metering, you can see the sub is going up and down a ton. Goes up and then down and up and down, which makes mixing the sub really hard. It's all over the place. You can't really get on top of it. So in this case, I'm using an EQ8 to just kind of remove the sub, and then I'm adding my own sub with this second oscillator. And now, as you can see, we have a nice static sub, really not moving around too much, much easier to work with. So in this case, I have oscillator 2 going to direct out, just bypassing all the effects, and then oscillator 1 runs through the effects and vital. And here we just have a chorus, adding some more stereo width, some more movement, and then the EQ8 to kind of clean up the low end so the sub can shine through. So that's that. And then we have EQ8 here, cleaning up the low mids, and RC20 fattener, just boosting a little bit of the signal here so it sticks out a little bit more. So that's that under the bass tab. Now we can go over the sound design in the mid-range. I have the mids group here. So to start, we have this intro ARP, and that's made of 3 different layers. We have the main ARP here. It's kind of your mono signal, right? This is right down the middle. We have this wide one, filling out the stereo width. And then we have this background one. It's up an octave, it's reverby, it's in the background, and that kind of fills out some of like the time domain. We'll get into that in a sec. So this is the main sound here. And we'll turn off these effects real quick. So this is a sound from Lethal. If you're not familiar with Lethal, this is kind of a like sample-based synthesizer. So the sounds aren't being synthesized inside of Lethal. I think they're just samples, and it's manipulating the samples. So you can see you have like an ADSR to adjust, attack decay, sustain release. You have your filter for low passing, high passing, all that. You can adjust the pitch here and add pitch envelopes. You have a noise oscillator here, vibrato, drive, all your classic glide and polyphony, monophony type stuff. But this is really great for just like pulling up nice sounding presets really quick, getting songs going quickly. It's loaded with presets. So this is a really cool synth if you're just looking for nice sounds ready to go and just to start writing right away. This is like one of my go-tos for that type of stuff. In this case, I'm using this EDM hardstyle preset Synth 6. Got this nice like ravey, distorted, dissonant kind of sound. And I'm running that through an auto pan. This is auto pan with the phase set to 0. And just a little bit of a mount set to 16th notes. So this pattern right now is already arpeggiating 16th notes with the Ableton arpeggiator MIDI effect here. And so the BG autopan preset here is just accentuating the 16th note pattern. So because everything's very on beat, you can get away with doing something like this. So without it, oh, on the wrong one, that's why. Yeah, without it, it's like this. As you pull it up, you can hear it becomes more and more percussive. So this is nice for just like tightening up the dynamics on sounds that are very rhythmic, or, you know, predictably rhythmic, like this. So that's that. Then we have Disperser, doing what Disperser does, kilohertz distortion to help make the sound a little bit louder. We have RC20, making the sound even louder, pulling out the mids and high mids. And of course we have EQ8, cleaning up the low end, and a little high roll off here. So that's the mono signal. We have a wide signal here. A lot of the same processing. Let's do this. I think it's a different preset. Yeah, EDM hardstyle synth 10. Just, you know, sounds slightly different. In this case, I have the BG turned all the way up, so it's very percussive and really just like kind of adding to the attack of the sound. Again, Disperser, Distortion, EQ8, and then here we add the Warm Ensemble preset. In Ableton, you have Warm Ensemble. It's a chorus preset. It's this really exaggerated wide stereo sound. And it looks like I messed around with it a little bit because originally it's ensemble. I set it to classic. But anyhow, adding just wide stereo chorus. This is turned up all the way. So it's really exaggerated. And filling up the stereo field. Then EQ8, cleaning up the low end, and RC20 to make it louder. So these two work well together because you have the mono signal here and your wide signal here. They pair really well. And then here we have the background one. And this is, again, EDM hardstyle synth number 6. We have the pitch turned up an octave. So in Ableton, you have these MIDI effects. This one is MIDI pitch. And this is really nice. You can just drop this on and try different iterations of octaves really quick by holding shift and using the arrow keys. Or you can transpose keys if you wanted to. A lot of cool stuff to try there. So that's that. And that's running into Valhalla Room, 100% mix, high cut, lots of depth and decay. So this is just kind of adding a wide, far away version of the synth an octave up and filling in the frequency spectrum as well as the stereo field, making the sound feel a little more full. That's nice. And then all of this runs through a little bit more processing. See, we have like Endless Smile here. So this is throughout the intro. The second half here, you can see the Endless Smile automation lane starts to come up. And Endless Smile is like an easy washout reverby effect. So as we approach the end here, things get more reverby, bigger, and in your face before the fill. So that's that. We also have this bandpass verb sweep effect that comes in the breakdown. And so the ARP now is very far away. Kind of, we can reintroduce the ARP later in the song. And then, so that's a nice different version of that we automated on later in the song. This kilohertz tape stop here that comes in. Yeah, you can hear everything kind of like turns off. EQ8, cleaning up the low end, adding a boost around 10K. Ozone Imager. Ozone has this free Imager plugin, which is also a cool way for adding stereo width. Just another flavor of stereo width. I have it set to mode 1, which I think, in my personal taste, I like this one more. And then the width knob here, just up 10%. Just adding a little bit of width to the signal here. EQ8 again, high passing, cleaning up some of the high end. This gentle limiter catching some peaks. RC20, boosting a little bit. And then this one here automates on in the build. As we add more elements in the build, the ARP started to get lost a little bit, so now we're adding that back in. Adding the RC20 to help bring out the ARP during this section. So that's that. The bass during the intro, very video gamey. So we have this top layer, this mid layer, and the bottom layer. So we'll go over all of these. We have the top one. Again, arpeggiator set to 16th notes. In the MIDI, it's just playing static. Hold on one sec. Just these static notes, but the arpeggiator is doing all the legwork and making it 16th notes. In Lethal, this is just another Lethal preset. Oh, whoops, looking at the wrong one. But anyhow, they're all Lethal presets. This is Hero Pop Bass 4, and this runs through RC20. Just to help bring out some, make it louder. Right, so that's that. Then we have bass mid. Similar type of thing, we have this RC20, make it a little louder, and then this is just kind of clean up some low mids. And the bass bottom here, same type of thing. We have Vital preset again. Oh, this one's Vital, I see. Yep, Vital, this is just generating a low end signal. I think this is probably just a low pass sine wave again, or saw wave, yep. Runs through a little bit of soft clipping. So that's that. RC20, make it a little thicker. And then it's just cleaning up the low mids a little bit. So all these three come together, and there's probably a little bit of group processing. Yeah, we have this high pass filter here that probably automates up. Let's see. It probably did at one point. Now it's just kind of sitting there. No automation, but anyhow, yeah, just affecting the low end a little bit. Then that runs into this ZZ preset here. And then some EQ, cleaning up the low mids and the high end here. I don't know if we use this. Yeah. So, and then in the breakdown, the bass is low passed, so these are kind of empty, airy. The bass doesn't take up too much space. We slowly bring the bass back in with this auto filter. And then we get to here. And the RC20, this RC20 here kicks in, so the bass has more presence in the mix. This kind of becomes a little bit more of the focus because the ARPs are low passed at this point. And we have this transient shaper here doing sidechaining as well with the kick. So that's that. What else do we have? We have this kilohertz tape stop here. That's during the build, just adding a nice little effect. Also during the intro, we have this reverse vocal effect. Just doing a half step. That's kind of cool. And that runs through the ZZ just to like flatten it a bit. Lots of Valhalla room here. Almost 5-second decay. And then some EQ just to kind of band pass it. So you see a high pass here, low pass here. Kind of cool. We also have this vocal drone here. It's a Cashmere sample. And this is slowly coming in with the auto filter. Then we get to here. We have all that high end now. We have this Max for Live device called AS Width. In this tutorial, we've had like so many different stereo widening effects. I didn't realize I had so many in this project, but if you just like go on Google, this is a free Max for Live device called AS Width. Really cool for adding width in a multiband fashion. So this is adding to the mids and highs. And we have this riser rack. This is pretty straightforward. This is just kilohertz pitch shifter with a big grain size set to correlate. And then this knob just brings up the pitch, I think an octave. So during the build here, just brings up the pitch. It's not the cleanest sounding effect, but when you use it on like background effects like this isn't the focus during the build. This vocal is very much in the background. You don't really pick up on the little like jittery type stuff. So it works well for that type of thing. Really good for like your risers in the background. So that's that. We have this cool ghostly pad here right at the beginning. Just adding a little something as the start of the song. This guy here, the intro hook sound. Lots of delay. Valhalla Supermassive. This is a free plugin from Valhalla. It's like this nice, airy, glittery delay. Just another flavor of delay to mess around with. It's got this cool like mod panel, and you can also do filtering as well. Cool feedback. This warp, which I think modulates the pitch. Cool to mess around with, just like a different flavor. And then phaser flanger. I have it set to flanger with a high feedback, so you get that. Before it sounds like this, and then with the flanger, really exaggerated. Big flanger fanboy here, so that's that. That's most of the layers. Once you get into the breakdown, we have this icy Pluck sound. And this is out of Lethal. Lots of post-processing to get things wide and airy. So let's go over this real quick. Turn that off. In Lethal, this is EDM Hardstyle Synth number 2. So this has this nice tail to it. It's really airy and glitzy. So here we have super low pass. This is just 2 auto filters getting, automated by a macro here. Very similar to like the kilohertz ladder filter. It's just a more gradual sounding low pass filter, which is good for something like this where I want it to sound, the low pass to sound a little more natural and not so in your face. Than maybe just like an EQ8 or something like that. This runs through Disperser, adding a little bit of that like dispersed quality, and then into 2 multiband compressions here. Then we do kilohertz transient shaper, and this pulls out. I think I was hoping it was going to pull out more attack on every hit, but it really just sounds like it gets that first one, which I don't know. It's fine. You can see it triggers for the first one, but then it doesn't trigger for the rest of them. But it's fine. It didn't really change anything. But so we're adding a little bit of delay here, and I think this automates over time. So as we get towards the end of the breakdown, you get more delay in the tail. Everything kind of blossoms out. And I probably did that twice, just duplicated it. Yeah.